And good morning, Mr. C. It's over to you now.
Good morning, Omas. Good morning, AB. Good morning, Lagos. And good morning, the rest of the world.
Well, to open his case this morning, even though he's not in court this morning, let's definitely, Mr. C would open his case this morning with this story on from the Daily Trust newspaper, where the headline screams here, Solid Minerals, Nigeria's next petroleum. That's according to the Minister of that's the Minister of Solid Minerals, Dele Alake, speaking when he received the governor of Nasarawa State, who paid him a solidarity or probably congratulatory visit at this point in time. But do we not know really that it's about time we explored other minerals this country is endowed with? Mr. C, take us into the story.
Okay, thank you very much. So the Minister for Solid Minerals met with the governor of Nasarawa State, I believe, over the weekend, and they explored ways of exploiting the very many natural resources that can be found in Nasarawa State. And I'm going to give a few examples. So you can find barite, you can find coal, you can find clay, you can find lead, zinc, salt, gemstones, silica sand, iron ore, granite, tantalite, marble, mica, cassiterite, limestone, and aquamarine. Now, this is literally a state sitting on a lot of potential untapped wealth. And I dare say that if we truly exploit our solid minerals, even to the tune of, say, 50%, it will give the crude oil sector a run for its money. Now, what is important is the right framework is put in place, it's enforced, and it's implemented. Because what we have seen up until now is wide and rampant cases of illegal mining. And where there's any legal mining, the proceeds are so little, it discourages the state government from really focusing on that sector. So it's good that this administration is looking at solid minerals, because the truth of the matter is Nigeria needs to earn more foreign exchange. And right now, it doesn't seem like the crude oil sector is pulling its weight because of vandalism, because of all theft, and because of complicity between certain members of the state establishment and private sector criminals. So this is a step in the right direction. And if they can put in the requisite framework, we will then begin to see what we see in other countries. Say, take, for example, Ghana, where you have international mining companies entering into agreements with the state governments here with a view to exploiting the minerals. Now, we must be very careful to guard against selling our resources for very cheap prices. We must also be careful to ensure that we get the requisite technology transferred within a given time. We must also be careful to ensure that the communities where these resources are taken from or extracted from are properly looked after, so they don't suffer the same fates the oil producing communities have suffered and continue to suffer. So it's a good step, but let's see how they bring this home.
So before I go back to AB, I know you have some thing to just chime in, but I want to quickly get this one in. If you can do this for us in 30 seconds now, Mr. C. You also left out crude oil has also been found in large deposit in Nasarawa State. In your pitch for that state, you did a very good pitch. I don't know how probably you were making a good case for Nasarawa already in the opening statement. So I'm just wondering, beyond this, how can the government itself, win itself, Nasarawa as well as other states, win themselves of this expectation from these oil dollars and really get to work?
So what they need to focus on, they need to do an in-depth analysis of what resources their states have, what benefits they can spring up. So let's go 1999, Cross River State. The then governor decided, look, I'll make tourism one of the linchpins of administration. And then all of a sudden, boom, we had the Obudu Resort, which was revitalized. We then had the Calabar Carnival, which became international. We had foreigners flying into Nigeria deliberately and intentionally in the month of December to have a good time, and spend their forex. So if each of the states can identify their niche areas where they're very strong, where they have a comparative advantage, then there will be less dependence on the federal allocation and this crude oil revenue business. But they have to be deliberate and intentional about it.
Thank you. We'll go over now to AB. AB, you have something to throw into this file. I should just log into it.
Very quickly. There is actually a publication called the Book of States, where every single one of Nigeria's states has the top 6 resources, whether solid minerals and everything. You can find that every state in Nigeria could literally be self-sufficient if management was the issue. And that is what takes me to the headline. Solid minerals, Nigeria's next petroleum. If we sit down and have that mentality we have had before, where we have had this petroleum resource, but have not optimally used it, then solid minerals will go the same way. So like Mr. C accurately said, the right framework is important, but the right mindset, rather than just talking of taking these resources and in fact selling them, because we know what's happened in this country north of us. In Niger, lithium has been sent to France for years, and Niger is one of the countries with the poorest electricity in the world. Yet France is one of the most advanced countries in terms of industrialization. So we must make sure we're not exploiting ourselves, cutting off our noses to spite our faces, thinking we're getting forex.
Okay, that's enough time to get in the listener. This time we'll expect those messages to come in on 0809-444-0981, reacting to all of the headlines we're treating. But be sure to also catch us because we are streaming live also on youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. That said, AB, this next item is for you from the Punch newspaper. It says, Lagos seeks residents' involvement in environmental cleanup. That's what it is saying. That's as part of the 2023 World Cleanup Day. And one is tempted to ask, do we really need to wait for one of these days to know that we as a people, Lagos especially, need to clean up a great deal?
You know, in the first paragraph of the story, they said the Lagos State government correctly states that it is the residents of the state who have to participate in the cleanup of their environment. Indeed, they assert that it is part of the citizens' civic responsibility. Kudos to the Lagos State government for recognizing and stating that. However, that word responsibility makes me ask, what is the government's responsibility in the logistical chain of waste disposal? I do not believe any normal human being will sit down in their residence and allow refuse, to gather. So people typically gather it and set it out. From that point, it is municipal, either local government and state government responsibility to collect all that and dispose of it carefully. But even that leads me to the next statement. We're talking about waste disposal. Actually, the right mindset is waste management. There are countries like Sweden that have actually come to a point where the waste is a major source of energy. Of course, they live in a refrigerator over there, so they use it to heat their houses. Somewhere like Germany, what's that, our magical top number in Nigeria? 4 megawatts plus. Germany makes over 1 megawatt from waste. So rather than seeing waste as a problem, with the right mindset again, we can see waste, especially in as populated a location as Lagos, as an excellent source of wealth, energy, and employment. Yes, Loma exists. You visit the website to see all the great plans and everything. How much are those plans translated into actual effect? There is room for improvement. Again, the government is right. Every individual should participate, but the government has to pull its weight, because I cannot take my waste from my front gate to a landfill. Or better, I should get to a point where it's sorted. Any one of us who visits your cousin abroad, their 3-year-old child will start educating you. Uncle, you don't throw things there, you sort it. We have an opportunity to change our mindset. We should sort, recycle, and then maybe reuse some things, and we can better manage waste.
AB, you just called our attention to waste to wealth and the need to do more in that regard. That's what I would run away with in this story you treated this morning. Thank you very much. And that takes me to Mr. C once again. So as you help us prepare this one for court. And this one is coming in, looming strike. Federal government invites labor leaders for fresh meeting. That's coming from the Daily Trust. And, you know, this is off of the back of that 2 days warning strike. And it seemed like if nothing is done, we're staring a major industrial action in our eyes. So take us through this, and what makes you feel Labour would honor this next invitation? Because you remember there was a time, that's the NLC now. We know the TUC was part of a meeting, but the NLC now would honor this invitation.
Okay, so thank you, Amas. So we're here. This is the latest episode of the ongoing series between the federal government and representatives of labor, specifically the NLC and the TUC. Now, these meetings have been held and organized in response to the removal of the fuel subsidy, the initial removal of the fuel subsidy program. Now it's in through the back door, but that's a different conversation. Now, with that, with the then removal and then the managed float of the Naira, came very severe attendant shocks to the Nigerian economy and by extension, the average Nigerian worker. We saw the costs of goods rise up astronomically. We saw the cost of housing, the cost of living, cost of foodstuffs rise astronomically. And in the said period, salaries remained stagnant. There have been ongoing talks between Labour and the government with a view to getting a handle on the palliatives. So far, what the government has distributed in the name or the form or guise of palliatives is a sum of 2 billion naira transferred to each state government, and then trucks of rice, I think reportedly 5 per state. And that is the initial round of palliatives that were distributed officially.
Yes.
Now, where we are is they've called for another meeting. And I'm sorry to say this on air, it's just another meeting to waste the time of labor. The truth of the matter is, right now, it is money required to fix some of labor's demands, and that money is simply not available.
All right, Mr. C, we are at a red light right now, so we need to quickly take this break for traffic to flow by. When we come back, it is still freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. AB Bozimo is still here with the papers, and Mr. C, my name is Omatseye Atsenuwa. Stay tuned.
Mr. C, you're right.
You know
That's
Echo Bridge, the Third Mainland Bridge shutdown didn't happen.
Hmm?
You know they were supposed to have shut down.
You know, they said it was the rain. They gave a reason why they didn't. They said the rain happened.
No, the rain happened on Saturday. The rain was supposed to be done on Sunday. That is the laziest and dumbest excuse I've ever heard of.
It was the rain.
They assaulted. If the people doing the work, they assault.
And rain is a surprise. In rainy season, oh wow, it's going to rain in the rainy season. What a shock.
Omas, so let me ask you a question.
Yes.
If they have started to work and the heavens opened up, they will abandon the work.
Well, that's the reason. At least we have an official reason why it happened.
Is so ridiculous.
Okay, I see that.
Oh, you do?
I see what you're saying. You said it is the what am I supposed to say?
You do.
That's the reason they gave. So what else do you want to say, Mr. C? Your paper. Who's picking up the ball? So, Evie, do you have anything to add when we come back on?
I haven't finished.
Mr.
He
has not finished, and I have nothing to say about labor. That can be broadcast on air.
Studio. We're back. We're Smooth 98.1 FM. It's gone 23 minutes now. Let's see, before we can close up the show, but let's quickly get into some more stories, and let's also expect some of your reactions to the stories we're treating onto the number 0809-444-0981. Mr. C, would you like to close up that story so we can get to some reactions we have?
So very quickly, This meeting is being called to stave off the impending indefinite strike to be announced by Labour. And mark my words, nothing will come out of this meeting. It will just be another futile meeting designed to frustrate and waste the time. If you have money for them, no matter how small, throw it out as a sign of good faith. Then structure how the rest will be paid. But calling them to meeting upon meeting just to discuss without any firm commitment to paying any sort of money or even increasing the minimum wage really defeats the purpose for which these meetings have been called.
No, but again, in defense, even as you make the point, Labour's demand was show some commitment. The government in itself, they've raised, they rolled out palliatives already. At least they rolled out palliatives. Would you not say they've rolled up? Isn't that a sign of goodwill or commitment? And then they're trying to raise up, set up what you call the compressed natural gas outlets to give alternative.
Thomas, 5 trucks a state is a collective insult to Nigerians. That's one. 2, 30,000 naira is another collective insult to Nigerians.
Okay.
In this day and age, that you cannot, no human being can survive on 30,000 naira. It's not just possible. And you expect them to collect 30,000 naira and not resort to a life of crime, corruption, and bribery. Who are we fooling?
AB, you've got something to throw in quickly before we move on.
One sentence.
Yes.
It's so interesting and unfortunate that 2 billion naira per state government, has been given to what arguably I, AB Bozimo, believe are the least imaginative people in the country, because it's just going to form part of the further waste hiring aides upon aides, and it's really not going to get to affect the lives of people property, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. So this would come back to you've got the Punch paper waiting for your attention, AB, but let's see a couple of message on sent in on the platform already. Joyce joins us this morning saying, Zamfara State welcomes international miners coming in to mine good, and revenue goes only to the government. Nigeria as a country does not gain from gold in that state. That's according to Joyce. So we are not even getting it, even when we say the government should tap into it. What is going to the federal coffers? That's what she's asking now. Ajayi Oloninlua comes in with this one. There is no doubt that the country is blessed with so much solid minerals that can replace our reliance on crude oil as a source of wealth. But the Minister of Solid Minerals must not make the same mistake of turning it to another source of curse for the communities through the inappropriate policy formulation. That's Ajayi's comment from Magodo GRA Sherry. Next comes a message from, okay, this one says, the states also need to stay the course when they decide to explore other sectors apart from oil. Cross River State decided on tourism in 1999. By 2011, a new governor from the same party as Donald Duke presided over the ruin of Obudu Ranch and Tinapa. And those who have been around, you want to see, you cry, you weep when you get to Tinapa and all of the money spent there. Well, maybe probably a vision materialized too soon. We weren't ready for it, but hey, Benag Aigbogie comes in from Amuwo Dofin saying, federal government needs to do more to ensure revenue from solid minerals is harnessed and shared centrally. This is what happens to crude oil revenue. Why look the other way and allow bandits and unlicensed miners hold sway up north? That's Aigbogie's view from Amuwo Dofin. Let me throw in Tonye quickly into this one. He says, good morning, AB and Mr. C. Mr. AB is talking about waste management. If he comes to Ojota on any day of the week, at any time of the day, he will shed tears. The stench from that Olushosu and that axis is horrific. I can't even begin to think about the health implication to people in that area. So we'll pause the messages for now and let's get back to more of the papers. Punch is waiting for you now this morning, AB, and it says, airstrikes destroy 30 illegal refineries in Rivers State. That's according to the Punch newspaper. And this story ties into environment. It ties into a culture of waste again and all of this. But AB, open this up for us.
So we hear that the air component of Operation Delta Safe has destroyed no less than 30 active illegal refining sites. I'll pause the reading from there and just take it from a holistic perspective. A refinery, no matter how crude it is not something you can do in secret. They are talking about ground tanks. They're talking about pipelines. They're talking about logistics of boats coming with stolen crude. First of all, that concept of stolen crude, there's another story Mr. C will handle about that, which I'll chime in on. But you have a constant leakage, quote unquote, of crude. You have facilities for quote unquote processing it. That's, are you telling me, sprung up in secret? And then the last part, the air component now goes and bombs that. Think of the environmental destruction. Of course, those doing it are the first to lead in destroying the environment. Let me be very clear. They're engaging in illegal activity. But you don't compound one illegality and one bad judgment with another national bad judgment. Bombing places seems to me to be the least intelligent way to curb this. I believe you can capture the people you can capture, you can decommission the facilities and not just destroy them and further damage the environment. So I don't know at what point our government and security officials will come into the 21st century and try and stop this first from source. That notion of stealing pipeline crude, it doesn't fly with me. I've said it many times, I will restate it. You cannot steal from my parlor every day and I'll just be reporting it on the newspapers. I will do something about it. I'll put up a fence. I'll get a Doberman. I'll do something. So when we say stealing, like Mr. C, there seems to be some collusion, but I have no evidence of it thus far. You cannot continue telling me they are stealing, they are refining, and then you now have to bomb. That just looks to me like a chain of indolence and lack of intelligence wrought wide across the country. And it cannot function. We cannot function like that. So let's reassess our systems and make sure that we're stopping the theft first and then preventing those who are engaged in that from successfully carrying out their so-called refining activities. It's pathetic.
Abi, I've got two quick questions for you before I would link up a story. Because of this story, I'll go to the next story to link Mr. C into it because it's oil related. Exactly. So that's what we'll move into that. But this is for your attention now. There's a school of thought, and even at a point in time, there was a governor in the South region who advocated for legalizing these illegal refineries as a way of tapping into their expertise to meet the shortfall of crude oil supply, licensing them. So that's one argument. But again, there is the argument that desperate situations require desperate action. They refuse to stop this pillaging of our national wealth. And the security forces are now taking actions that should serve as deterrent. And here you are, you say it's seeming like that's not a good measure, but this is action enough to serve as deterrent.
So the solution is to go and bomb those places and further despoil the land. Why are they, like one of the messages said, why are they not bombing the miners in certain parts of the country? We have for too long believed that oil is God. Oil is not God. In fact, I disagree with the first headline because the truth of the matter is that Nigerians' brains, a mere 2 meters above the ground, are really the next natural resource for Nigeria, not minerals underground. If you don't develop those brains, all those minerals are useless. So no, you cannot keep bombing and destroying facilities located in one part of the country and letting other people get the benefits of resources in their part without giving to the central government. It looks like double standards. And at the bottom line, you are destroying the land. It's not acceptable. It is not acceptable.
To the second question, would it be good to just say, okay, let's license them and then get them into legality then on the right side of the law?
It goes back to what I said at the start, management. We refuse to apply management. Of course, it would be a great idea. What does it solve at once? You stop the illegal activity, you provide employment, and you preserve the land. What's not to love about that? Duh.
Oh, AB, this morning on this side, you woke up. I would like to find it after the show. But Mr. C, let's link up the story because it's oil related. Nigeria loses 8.7 trillion naira for failing to meet OPEC quota in 8 months. That's the Daily Trust reporting. So here we are, battling, stealing, and illegal refining. And So do we need Nostradamus or a native doctor to help us find out what the cause of our lack of FX is right now?
Thank you, Amas. No, we don't. So Nigeria has lost officially 8.7 trillion naira. Now, I must state this very clearly. Anytime any government of Nigeria reels out figures, they have been understated. The real figure lies beyond it.
No, Mr. C,
that
can be a fact. That's your opinion.
No. Any government, and I will prove it.
You can't know that's a blanket one.
Accident,
we can't on this media. We can't say that's any government. That's that's
all the governments of Nigeria from independence to date have struggled with the burden of always establishing the truth, always being accountable, always being open, always being transparent. Now, officially, according to this account, 8.7 trillion has been lost because we haven't met our quota. Now, why have we not met our OPEC quota? There are a number of reasons. One, aging production facilities. Two, massive oil theft. Three, even under-reporting of what is officially produced. Now, this 8.7 trillion is between January and August this year. That's 8 months. Now, in one of the previous stories, we're looking for a shortfall of about 6 trillion to fund road projects.
Exactly.
Assuming this money came in, there would be no shortfall. Now, back to what AB said in the previous story. Why do we have a joint task force in the Niger Delta? People are setting up illegal refineries, and these things take time. They're not things you complete or construct in the space of 30 minutes, 2 hours, or 3 hours. And they're not structures you can easily hide. Now, every time we hear, oh, we bombed an illegal refining site, we burnt a tanker, we set alight a tanker or a freighter full of crude, suspected stolen crude oil. In all of these activities, it appears to a reasonable man that there is no deliberate or intentional effort to get the human brains or the human hands fueling these activities. And I'll take you back. A former minister for justice was killed. A former governorship aspirant in Lagos State was killed. The very next day, the crime scene was full of visitors. The chaps from Scotland Yard who offered to help us investigate the crime got to the crime scene, saw everyone marching in and out, and said they couldn't do anything. So where am I going with that example? For as long as we refuse to do proper investigations, each time you have intelligence of an illegal refining site, and all you can do is send missiles from the sky, you can't send any ground troops to pick up human beings, arrest them, and get further intelligence. We will continue to run around in circles and continue to discuss these stories.
Now, this gets me to messages as we are out of time. Let's get the messages in. JP sent in a message saying, ABs on sport, Loma has to evolve waste sorting on a point-based system. They can't solve waste in 19 million population as it would be done in 9 million population. They need to step up and the state should think deep. That's a JP. I have a message in here from Chima Surulere. Federal government meeting with labor is endless. I see this time wasting. This is what happens when things are done without good plans. Gilbert comes in with a message and he says, Musa from Festac, like the analyst said, we need to draw the proper framework for solid mineral exploration so we don't go the way of the Niger Delta spills and oil theft currently damaging the ecosystem of that area. Ayodele Ogundele comes in, he says, I completely agree with and share the sentiments of AB. They are the least imaginative people and cannot turn 2 billion into 1 billion by any stretch of stretch. Yes, I mean 2 billion to 1 billion, not a typo. So he knows what he's typing. Idima Puza sent in a message here. It is common man that would suffer NLC strike, and that's what he says. I'm just trying to paraphrase so we can get to as many messages as possible. On the stench from Ojota, have you been to a Limosho in Igondo where a mountainous refuse dump is right next to a Limosho General Hospital? Health and filth lying side by side happily after, but moving on. I've got Austin from Satellite. I see your message. Tosin Ebaba, I also see your message. Yinka Bolu, I see the message. Tajuddin also, I see your message. Thank you all very much. AB Bozimo, thank you for your time today.
Thank you. The pleasure and privilege, both mine, always.
And Mr. C, thank you for your time as always.
Thank you for having me.
And I see Olu from Malacca. Everyone who sent in a message, we really do appreciate you. My name is Omatseye Atsenuwa.